Hi, welcome to an overview of the IHE Gazelle EVSClient, a tool to validate all sorts of message and other data formats as used in the various IHE profiles. My name is René Spronk and I'm a tutor with IHE Academy and Ringham, and we present all sorts of training courses related to IHE, HL7 and DICOM. So why EVSClient? So the EVSClient is basically a web front end for a couple of back-end validation toolkits. And we have one such toolkit, let's say, for DICOM and another one which is specialized for CDA, etc., etc. And each of those back-end validation toolkits has a series of business rules and syntax requirements associated with it that are specific to that particular format. And those requirements and business rules have been derived from the IHE profile specifications, as well as from the requirements as specified in the base standards, for example in HL7 DICOM or Dual 3C or digital signatures or whatever. And this means that the prime functionality of the web client is that it allows you to upload test data into a test data repository, where it will also be available for others to reuse, and then validate that test data using the appropriate backend validation toolkit and produce a validation report that shows you a list of errors, warnings, and other detailed reports. Because the test data is available in the repository, secondary use of the EVSClient is to retrieve test data which can then be reused in subsequent tests by others. Now, if you actually don't want to have your test data in a public test data repository, which under some circumstances you may not wish to do, you will have to get a login account on the EVS toolkit, and then using a configuration switch you can define that certain bits of test data not be stored in the test data repository. So, to give you an example of the back-end validation toolkits used by the EVSClient, well, for example, there is a specific validator for HL7 version 2 messages and version 3. We have the Gazelle objects checker, which is relatively new for all sorts of XML formats, including CDA, XDS messages, XDW. We have PDF file validation, and we have a series of DICOM validation toolkits. Near the bottom of the page you actually find the URL of the EVSClient, although searching for IHE and EVSClient will get you there as well. If you look, for example, at Objects Checker, this XML-based validator, and quite a lot of formats are XML-based, then it's a three-stage validation process. The XML has to be well formed, naturally. Then it has to validate against the published XML schema. But for most of these formats, the published XML schema is by far not rich enough to validate all of the underlying requirements as defined in the IHE profile and or the base standard. So we need a third step, which is a model-based, rule-based validation service. And this is done using UML modeling and OCL expressions of the various requirements. And by having this three-stage process, you can actually do pretty strong validation on XML formats. So let's have a look at the toolkit itself. So this is the EVSClient on the web. And near the top of the page we have the various projects, and depending on the project different constraints apply, and therefore the various back-end validation tools should act differently. Our main interest is in the IHE series of validation tools. And as you can see here, we have the option to validate assertions, simul tokens, ETNA audit messages, CDA documents according to the PCC technical framework, DICOM objects, the DSUB profile of XDS, version 2X messages, version 3 messages, HPD, Healthcare Provider Directory XML structures, PDF files, SVS sharing value sets, WS trust, WADO statements, the URLs used to retrieve images from text archives, XDS metadata structures, and XTW documents. Now, most of these tools are similar in the way that they are represented in this particular web front end. So we can look, for example, at the validation option, in this case for XD metadata. And I have the option to either upload or paste my own XML structure for validation. So what I'll do is I'll simply select a test file containing the XML that I want to validate. Here, test.xml. Select the appropriate transaction and validate the XML structure. After a while, the EVSClient reports that there are no errors in this particular XML file and returns the 3 validation stages, the XML, the schema validation, as well as the model validation, and it passed all of them. Obviously not everything will pass, but you will see errors, warnings, and other report information as well. Secondary functionality is provided by the mere fact that there is an example repository. So I can have a look at the validation logs. And let's say I'm looking for an example for the provide and register document set. And here I have one that passed validation. I can simply select the unique identification thereof and have a look at the validation report, as well as near the bottom of the screen the XML structure, which I can simply copy into my XML editor for a later reuse. In short, what we have is a validation toolkit for the syntax, structures, and business rules for many of the key formats used in XDS and XTW XCA profiles. Thank you for your attention, and this toolkit, amongst many others, will be used this fall in an advanced hands-on XDS training course with Eric Poiseau. See IHE Academy for details. And should you have a requirement for other training courses related to IHE, HL7 and DICOM, please visit www.ringhome.com.